Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens, the screenwriting step-by-step project, episode 247. My name is Glenn Gers, and I come to you every Monday through Friday, if I can make it, at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Zone, to let you look over my shoulder, share my screen as I write a script. I am doing this in order to teach a part of screenwriting that I feel is under-taught, which is the process, the day-to-day, step-by-step, page-by-page work of taking abstract thoughts and feelings and ambitions, turning them into an outline, turning that outline into a rough draft, getting that rough draft rewritten into a readable draft. That process doesn't matter what kind of script you're writing. Doesn't matter if I'm not trying to tell you how to write a great script. I'm just saying in order to write a great script, you need to get the script written. And the way you get a script written is not by thinking about how great it'll be. It's by thinking about the process. That is the thing that I think people don't talk about enough. You need to think about your process. You need to work on the process. If the content isn't working right, the process is how you're going to get better at it. So that's what I want to show you, is just some tricks, some tips, some techniques that may work for you. It's not the only way. It's not the right way. It's not the official standard screenwriting success story way. It's just the way that I figured out in my 25-year career writing for TV and movies, and on my way out of the business. I am leaving it behind for those of you who are trying to face a blank page by yourself. When I was starting out, I didn't have any idea how to do it. There was no YouTube. There were no screenwriting classes. So I am just trying to do this in case you can use it. If you try these things and they don't work for you, don't do them. It's not like there's a right way or a wrong way. Every writer has to figure out their own way. What I figured out, I put on my channel in the first 3 playlists especially. That's the goods. That's the stuff I really work to try and get down to very short 10-minute lessons. The subject of that lesson is in the thumbnail in great big colorful words: dramatic action, genre, flashbacks, script format, whatever it is. If I have something to say about it, I tried to get that into the most concise, useful form I could give you, and that is what I beg you to look at your leisure. It's there, it's free. When you want, take 10 minutes, take a lesson. That is what I am here for. Hi, Najo. Hi, this is Kitschy. Hello, Jean. Good afternoon, Nathan. Nathan, I'm going to talk about your question because it is a good one, and several other people are asking it as well. That question is, when do you stop outlining? How do you know when you're ready to write? Obviously, as Nathan correctly guessed, my answer is going to be everybody's different. But within everybody's different, there are some things that everybody can do to try and figure it out. The first thing is to never consider the outline a separate stage of writing. The outline is not this thing you do before you write. It's this way of thinking when you write, all the time that you're writing. You never give up the outline. You just use it when you need to step back and think out things in terms of scenes, in terms of story, in terms of characters, when you need to get out of the words and into the big picture, the construction, the backstage mind. That's what the outline's for. The other thing the outline's for is just a way to organize it, to say, I need to think about how this works, and I can't be doing that word by word. I have to step back into scenes, into story. That's what the outline's for. It's a place to work, a place to work out your thoughts. So the answer is you never finish the outline. You go back to it when you need to. If you've watched me do this, you'll see whenever I run into a section where I feel like I'm not quite getting it, I do the best I can in the rough draft, and then I stop and I go back out into the outline and the notes, and I think, all right, what is this scene about? What is this story about that I am not getting this part of it? That is what the outline is for. So when you are figuring out your outline, when you're first getting your story, if you begin to get a sense of, I think I've got this story down here, Then you might start writing it and then discover there's parts you don't and you go back. That's fine. I do know people who precisely precisely outline every scene until they are positive they've got it right. Because then when they write it, they can just worry about the words. I think that's fabulous. I just never can get that right. However, hello, Gerardo. And I've said, I believe that everybody has to figure out their own way. You do it based on what you're afraid of, what you're good at. You base it in how it works for you. If you are doing something, like I have to get this absolutely right before I write, and you never write, obviously that's not a good plan for you. Okay? On the other hand, if you get a kind of approximate and then you start to write and you get so fouled up that you aren't able to write, that's not a good plan. Go to more planning. Nobody knows. Everybody's got to do it their own way. All I can say is the most important thing is to pay attention to whether or not you are making progress. If you are making progress, keep doing that thing. If you are not making progress, try a different thing. That's the writer's rule, okay? There is no right way to do it. Different people will have different things. So the question, how do I know it's time to start? You will only find out really by doing it like 10, 20 times. And then at that point, you'll say, okay, I always think it's time to start, and it turns out I'm not really ready. Or I know it's time to start when I can read through the outline and I'm getting bored. Whatever it is, that's going to be the right answer for when is it time to stop outlining and start writing. The only thing I will urge you to remember about that is you will never stop outlining. You will be going back to that. Between drafts, I urge you to make a copy of the outline and then conform that outline, check that outline against what you wrote, and make the outline catch up to it so that your outline is a functional, useful schematic of the writing. You want to keep the outline alive. You want to keep the outline functional. Like I said, I very often use the outline as a things to do list. So I will say, what did I need to do in this script? And I'll go back to the outline. I will delete everything I did, and that leaves everything I have to do. And there may be some things that I'm like, you know what? I'm never going to do that. And I take that out and put it in the scrap pile. The outline is a place to work. I think I wrote that somewhere. Hold on. Hang on. Yeah. Well, first of all, an outline is a list of scenes, and that is the main thing. If you still are coming up with things and you don't have scenes for them, you probably should keep outlining. That's the thing. If you've got I got this character, and the character doesn't have scenes that they are in that progress from one to the other, that means you still need to outline because you can't write things that aren't in scenes. So, that is the main thing is to try and keep the outline as a place to work, as a place to organize your thoughts. Hi, D3 Entertainment. It is a great topic. I always feel weird when it comes to outlines. I rarely outline at all until I'm already into the story. I just write something. No, I actually know lots of people who do that. If it works for you, great. The point of the outline is to have a place to work. If you've already got this thing worked out for some reason in your mind, or because of the way you write, you find it as you go, you don't need an outline. That's fine. Not a problem. The reason to do this is if it's not working. If you are some person who can just start a story and make it flow and keep writing it and get it done, do that. Don't stop. Nobody's going to ask for your outline. Okay, when you're professionally writing, like for TV, they do ask for your outline, but you'll deal with that. Anyway, that's the main thing is just if you think that you are like, oh my gosh, am I doing this wrong? Ask, do you still have things in this outline area that are not yet scenes? Make a scene for that. Figure out a scene that goes into. It may have to be broken up into several scenes. The main thing is you want to get stuff broken into scenes because that's what you're going to write. Okay? And Roddy was asking, Roddy asked me a similar question, which is, how do you recognize plot holes in your outline? Which is a good, similar question. The first thing is, if you can read through your outline and follow the story, then you can check for plot holes then. Plot holes is such a weird thing. People are always asking about plot holes. I'm not sure what plot holes really are. Plot holes implies that there's like this correct plot and then there's pieces missing, holes in it. There are often stories where you jump over stuff, where there are holes. Holes are part of plotting. So therefore, to say, I always worry when people say plot holes, because plot holes really is something that people who don't really know what they're talking about say when they're trying to say there's a logic problem. Like, this person says, I'm going to Scandinavia for to escape this situation, and then they show up on the island of Crete. That's a plot hole in the sense that it doesn't make sense. It's not logical. We don't understand it. But that's not really a hole. That's a thing that doesn't make sense. Plot holes could also mean things that you have questions about. And the answer is, that kind of depends too, because one of the biggest mistakes that non-writers and especially producers and executives and other people ask is they're always worried that the audience won't follow things, and so they want everything shown, everything explained, everything laid out. And yet the magic of movies, beyond anything else, but also the magic of any storytelling, is that you are choosing parts to tell. You're like somebody skims a stone across the surface of the ocean. It hits certain points and bounces and keeps going in that direction. That's what a story is like. You don't show every step. You don't explain everything. Some of it is just believable because of the genre, because of the things the character said earlier, whatever it is. So my answer would be, if you're looking for plot holes, what you want to do is read through your outline and try to make sure that the story flows logically and sensibly. In other words, that there isn't something where somebody is doing something inexplicable. They could try it. They could change their path without explaining it. Like, if you see them trying to break into a bank and they can't get past the front door. So then they go home, and the next thing you see is they all have a drink, and then the next day they're going in through the roof. Well, you didn't have to show that they had a meeting and decided to go in the roof. It's obvious. They said, that way doesn't work, we'll try the other way. That's not a plot hole. That's storytelling. I think the important thing is, if they were trying to get into the bank and all of a sudden they say, oh, let's get married. That would be a confusing plot. And you can usually see if that's there in the outline. And the nice thing about the outline as a way to understand it is it's quicker. You can read the outline much quicker than you could read a script. And you can see the structure much more clearly. So therefore, the outline is a great way to check your plot, because you can read through it pretty quick in one sitting and say, oh yeah, there's a place there where it doesn't explain how they get from here to there, or why they changed their minds. So that's how you recognize things in your outline. You read through it. And if there are parts in the outline that are not in scene form, then you need to put it in scene form. And if those scenes are not following, you need to think, do I need to add a scene? Do I need to move these scenes around? Why does this not feel like a good story to me? Different people have different ideas about what a good story is. Christopher Nolan will say, well, that's in chronological order. That's no good. That doesn't mean that it's not good for everybody. I kind of wish he had done Dunkirk in chronological order, because it doesn't make any sense to me that Dunkirk was out of order. On the other hand, some other things, Tenet, should be out of order. Although Tenet actually is in order. It's just in two orders going at each other. Okay. Najo. Najo doesn't outline at all, but she do write notes. I think that the point is exactly everyone does it their same way. The other thing about it is some people may need to write a whole first draft and then outline it. They may need to make an outline of what they wrote in order to notice, oh, there's 3 scenes that basically tell the same fact, that show that this character is anxious. So do I really need 3 of those? Sometimes you see that better in the outline. Thank you, Lysanda. I really appreciate that. That's good to know, because I'm sitting here thinking, am I just blabbering? That all made sense. Excellent. Good. Something that helps me to make sure every scene is driven by dramatic action, a verb that defines a scene. Well, I agree with that. And for those of you who don't understand what Gerardo is talking about, I have made a video about that called Dramatic Action. And I urge you to look at that, because it explains, I believe every scene does have some form of dramatic action. There will be the rare scene that doesn't, but often it's kind of still there in some weird way. Very few scenes will not have something that someone is doing. And by understanding that, that's outline thinking. Okay. Yeah, that's, absolutely. If you draft first and then outline because that's how your creativity works, excellent. There is nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all. So I will just say, yeah, that's good. Don't worry about it. So speaking of which, I need to outline this document. All right. So, boom, boom, boom. Now, the question is, do I actually need to outline every single character? Well, this is an ensemble story, and in theory, yes, it's not a bad thing to think out each character's story. So, when writing different timelines, like pretend, would it be wise to do each chronologically and dealing with that, or stick to how the scenes intercut? That will always depend on how your brain works and the particulars of the story. For me, I probably would need to sort of do both. I would need to have one outline which is showing how the scenes are intercutting, but I would also probably make copies and just isolate each timeline so that I could keep track of what's going on in that timeline. So that's how I would do it. But also you do different things at different times. There's not just one way to do it. You use it how you need to use it. If you need to understand a specific timeline, you can make a copy of the outline and just delete everything that's not in that timeline. And then you say, I now have an outline of this story. And you can track it. So that's how I do it. Keep a lot of notes in my head. I urge you not to do that. But if it's working for you, great. If you are able to keep a lot of notes in your head, that's bless you and your head. That's great. I would say in general, the more that you can get used to writing it down, write it down, because the more you write it down, the more things accumulate and the more that questions arise that help you to figure out what you haven't written. However, if you are doing well with your system, D3, do your system. That is the fact. Okay. So Shrimpton is the last major storyline that I have not done. What we know is she quits the group at the beginning. They have to come back to her, or she has to get back into it somewhere along the line. Somewhere. Obviously, somewhere along the line is a lovely phrase, but the truth is, it's not. Obviously, it's along the line. The question is, I kind of know. I know that in showing Shrimpton quit in the first scene, I have essentially rushed things. But at the moment, I'm going to leave it. That means she has to come back. The question then becomes, what happens to her when they come back into it? Yeah, like I said, if your mind is a beautiful mess and it's functioning, leave it alone. Do whatever you do. I am only saying if you get into the habit of writing your characters in your story because it's not working. You're not getting things organized well enough. People are telling you when they read your stories that they don't follow them or that they're not moving well enough. Then you might want to try different. If it's working for you, if you whatever goes on in your head creates workable stories, do that. Not a problem. All right. Yeah, whatever works. Okay. All right. Now, the question is, the thing we know about her is she is a nurse. And she is also, the question is, how, well, actually, why and how do they get her back in? And what happens to her? These are the questions. I have to figure out how many people I need to kill off. That's the thing. Is it in a murder story you need to? I think that she has a close call, but is not killed. I believe that she does not die. And the thing about her that we know is that she is a nurse and she is out of it. So one of those two things is going to need to be important to our main characters for them to, like, that either they need a nurse, like they can't go to a doctor because it's like a gunshot wound, so they go to her, but then they have to be close enough to her that that's possible. Gunshot wound, can't go to ER. And now this is another thing. Why can't they go to the ER? In other words, they're not criminals. That's an interesting point. That doesn't really make sense. Plot hole. if in a sense that would be a plot hole. If I continued it, the question would be, why can't they go to the ER unless they have done something? Also, I'm trying to keep guns out of this for a while, although they're going to show up. Yes, no, that's why they can't go to the ER. The question is, why can't they have it reported? In other words, if they are the gunshot victim and they are not the criminal, they have nothing to hide. Except Well, see, Xena is like insane about not going to the police. Um, could it possibly be because the nearest ER is out of network? That is amusing, but in fact, if you go to an ER with a gunshot wound, I believe they are required to help you, even though you may not be covered. So I don't think I'm going to have them be that worried about that. No, the question would be, is Xena trying to, well, they would have to, they are trying to conceal something they did, or Xena is afraid the police will steal her glory. Which would mean it would have to be Xena who is wounded. Do I want to do that? Okay, these are the two possibilities, and I'm separating them to show that they are separate. Or did one of them, Ted, shoot one of the others? That would kind of be fun. In other words, if it's not that, like, while trying to solve some problem, so protect someone or be wary, that actually is more fun. Yes, I think that's it. Or a related individual. Okay. So that's possible. So then they would have to be near Shrimpton. Yeah. She from then on, she is back into it. Why has she changed about police? Because she was saying, hey, now that we're getting into serious crime issues with real consequences, we should just go to the police and no one else will. Okay. Well, that's a good start on Ms. Shrimpton. Okay. Yeah, we still don't have McLean, but at least I got most of the others. All right. And Deakins and Madeline and Norman, I had worked out the stories in the past. I just have to write them. Actually, Deakins, I don't. Madeline and Norman, I know, but Deakins was a lot of questions. So let's go to this overview. And read what I have. Okay. He is a retired serial killer. Right. This I like this. That's redundant. Got it. Yes, it is entirely possible. But sometimes the thing is, and actually just to take this seriously for a minute, here's the thing, and this is actually useful. This is an important insight. When you are creating a plot and a story, and you come to a choice, any choice, and this will happen over and over, you are essentially doing the storytelling version of Occam's razor. Occam's razor is a philosophical concept that when you have multiple possibilities, the simplest one is the right one. The storytelling version of that is the one most related to the main story is the right one. In other words, there are many, many reasons that people could not go to an emergency room. And one of them is absolutely true. You could be concerned about the cost of medical care. However, that has absolutely nothing to do with anything else in the story. So while it is funny and sad and true and logical, believable, it has the disadvantage that it has nothing to do with anything else in the story. There's no other concern in the story about insurance or medical coverage. Now, if I really, really wanted that to be there, I could make that a theme. I could make it one of many sub-themes of the story. But the truth is, there's a little alarm bell going off in my head, which is saying, while this is true, it is outside of the bounds of what we are focused on. And so the audience is going to be like, I guess I get it. I mean, depending on how you do it and also how your story is structured. If your story is structured with a lot of sort of random elements coming in, that could work. But we've been really focused here on everything tying together and being part of this hunt for a killer. So my answer is, I would say it is, it's always important when you are making choices in a story to ask, how does this relate to the rest of the story? It could be that it's a break. It could be that it's a tangent. That does happen. I'm not saying everything has to fit in perfectly to the same topic. That's definitely not true. That makes for boring stories. But you don't want to just grab a thing outside of a story and put it into the story without any recognition that that's separate. Audiences count on you to artificially focus on the story. In real life, we don't have that. In real life, there are so many things going on. And the reason that we watch stories is very much partly to feel that there is some guiding sense of organization in events. All right. That's really a big part of storytelling is recognizing that you are doing something artificial, and that if you want an extraneous thing to be put in, you can do it. You just have to figure out how, who will deal with that, and what are the consequences. Like, that could take the story in a whole new direction, and that could be interesting. Do you keep your outline very tight, mostly with the essential information? It tells a story. What is your feeling? Or is it better to strip them down to the essence? I would say that it is not better or worse. That the question is, when you're writing your outline, well, I mean, if you look at my outlines, they go all over the place. Here, let's look at the outline. That's the series outline. Sorry. Here's my outline. Okay. So this is after I have written it. So I have deleted a lot of stuff. Like these scenes were originally 2 or 3 pages of notes. But so this is like a really stripped down outline. This is just the scenes. outlines, okay? But if you look at my old outlines, which you can find, all the old outlines are still up. If you go to Writing for Screens, my website, it's changed slightly since I did this, but you can get the idea. You scroll down past the yellow page, you scroll down to the grid, and then you look at the section called Creative. It may have moved, like I said, but look for Creative, and you will find a section that says Latest Drafts and Outlines for the UPKP, the Untitled Podcaster Killer Project. If you look at that, you will find periodic saves of the outline, which go 20 or 30 pages, because I believe you should write all sorts of stuff into the outline. You can even do dialogue and description. You can put whatever is on your mind into the outline, because the outline is a good place to keep it. It keeps it in the scenes where you need it. And then later you will rewrite that stuff into the script, and then you take them out of the outline. And that way your outline tells you how far you've got to go before you can just read your script. That is my personal use of the outline. Don't have to do it, but I believe that it's good to keep as much as possible in the outline, because if you need to, you can always do what I did, which is eventually you make a copy of it, and if you just need to look at it really stripped down, just strip it down. Make a copy so that you're not losing it. Always make copies when you do variations on things. And so what I did here is, like, I had lots of descriptions here of, like, this scene, Madeline is talking to her office. I had lists of things I wanted to talk about and thoughts about what it meant. But when I really want to strip it down, I can just make a stripped down scene list. And it's quite short. See? Hold on, let's get to, yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so that's my answer about outlines. Lots to talk about outlines today. Okay. All right, these are questions I asked for myself about themes. Okay, well, this is true, so we can take that out. Other people's perceptions can push you to be someone you don't want to be. That's an interesting thought. So these are just themes. Okay. So he is framed for George's murder. An old man. So talking about. All right. So these are all just themes I had in mind. Okay, that's interesting. All right, so okay, how does he choose his victims? Self-taught. Self-taught. Take that out because it's not important. If you're murdering strangers, you have some emotional reason, some element. Okay. This is a separate, this is a theme. I will move this to themes. There we go. back to Deacon's backstory. That is what we are doing now. Deacon's backstory. Okay. Now we get into really huge philosophical questions. He stopped because he fell in love. That's a statement he has already made. It's in the story. So he stopped because he fell in love. Now the question about that is, does that mean that therefore was it a lack of love? Was his murders caused by a lack of love? Rather, isolation, alienation, being unloved. So do I believe that? This now the question becomes I want to not say something that I don't believe. Lots of movies, by the way, people say things they don't believe. It's my personal extra layer of overthinking that I don't like to say things just because it's a trope. It's a familiar, like in a genre, like an action film, the hero must resolve the story through violence, and they get forced to it. In other words, they say to the killer, put down your gun, and they won't put down their gun, so they have to shoot. I am not sure that I want to tell that story. That's exactly why we are not ending that way. So the question becomes, and the important thing I think I have to remind myself of is, if I tell the story of one murderer, I am not making a statement about all murderers. But a little bit sometimes you are. Like you are, if you say this murderer could have been stopped by having a better childhood, then you are partly blaming whatever happened in his childhood, and partly it's a prescription saying we must do this in order to prevent future murders. I'm not sure if I feel like that is enough, if that's accurate. It seems like a way of taking society off the hook for the social conditions which cause people to become killers. So, but I do like the idea of the transformative power of love. Okay. Did he have a horrible childhood? Okay, because, this is my because. He is murdering strangers because he feels disconnected, alienated. So, interesting. Okay. He was murdering. Okay. Okay. Ba-ba-ba-boom. All right. Well, at least I've got some of this. That's interesting. Okay. Let's get all, oopsie. Okay, these are all themes and questions. So I'm going to move them down below this summary of him. Okay. Okay, so that's not bad. Okay. All right. I'm just straightening up this story a little bit to try and okay. So the main thing is he has changed, and therefore these are questions. Interesting. Okay. Now the thing about themes is you need to, like, you can raise a question. If someone stopped doing bad things, should they be forgiven? And then you have to come up with your answer. In the story, you have to make a decision about whether or not, like, if you show forgiveness and you show forgiveness working, in other words, that it resolves the tension and the problems and people can do good after it, then you are saying, yes, they should be forgiven. I don't know if I believe that. So these are all questions I still need to answer. Okay, execution of nature, not enough, meaning he's old, he's going to die anyway. All right. He is framed for George's murder by Zena. All right, good. So we can take that out. So what I'm doing here is with the notes I've created over time, I now am saying, okay, I need to make final decisions on these things. These things still need to be decided. So I'm just organizing the questions. Questions, questions, questions. All right. Okay. Hello, Ners. Military background led to an association between doing good and people being killed. And so after combat, he wanted to feel good again, leading to killing more. That is a perfectly good story, but it's not the story I'm telling. As I said, one of the things that is most important when you have many possible explanations for things, when you have many possible reasons, the idea, yeah, love replacing that feeling. Yes, that is a good story. The thing is, I've already, by adding a military background, I would be changing the cause. And as you've noticed, I'm still questioning the cause. But I know that I don't want to bring up, just like I didn't want to bring up insurance. You may not have seen this a little earlier. When you're telling a story, and this is one of the reasons that it's sort of, when other people are helping you tell a story, they're coming at it they're just looking at the stuff that's interesting to them. But when you make your choices in a story, those are all coherent around your idea of what you want to do. So I know I do not want to bring the military into this because that would raise a whole other set of questions that I am not pursuing here. You can't pursue everything. I can't pursue the health insurance system and the military, the question of whether or not being in the military turns people into murderers, because it's too many large topics for this story, for one story. So the answer is that I always say the way that you choose is by organizing it around the main story. The main story here is about a couple of people who are not hunting serial killers, who have no interest in hunting serial killers, and they get dragged into this hunt for serial killers and become the targets of a serial killer. What I believe is very important to do is at a certain point you make a statement, okay? This is about a couple who fall in love when they get involved with an online amateur crime-solving community whose hunt for a serial killer provokes the killer to come after them. Now, because of that, my main topics, my main themes are about people falling in love and about whether or not we should hunt, like amateurs should go online and form clubs to hunt serial killers and essentially do the police's job. And what I want to come down on about that is, yes, they actually should do their investigation, but then they should not do what Xena does. In other words, the group is doing a good thing. The character of Xena is refusing to let the police have the information because she wants to do it all by herself. Now, Nares, there's no way you would know that. You're new here. Absolutely. So the answer is, with each choice you make, and this is sort of a good way to stop. With each choice you make when you create your story, you give yourself a reason to make other choices. In other words, having made this a romantic comedy about amateur serial killer hunters, I've already got a lot on my plate. So therefore, part of my job from now on is to say, having made that choice, I don't want to take on other choices. Now, sometimes you can. Like in the right mood, I might say, you know what? It would be cool to have this sub-theme about the military or a sub-theme about insurance and actually make that run through the whole story and really deal with it. I'm feeling like I'm not willing to take that on in this particular story for my particular writing of it at the moment. Doesn't mean it's wrong to do. But my basic advice is, one of the things I've noticed is that many writers, when they're beginning writers, each choice is made from a blank slate. Each choice is made from the starting point of anything is possible. Let's see what could you do with this? And the most important thing that you need to learn as a writer who's trying to pull things together for the audience, because the audience is counting on that, is once you make any single choice, everything else in the story gets tightened into those choices. Now, you can have a lot of them going. If you wanted to add military and you want to do that, but if you add something, you need to not have it just be a one-time, oh, he's from the military and these people are doing insurance and there's a car chase here. You don't make every choice based from starting from scratch. Every choice you make narrows the playing field for the further choices. And that's a good thing. That's the best news. Because while it is fun to simply say, oh, I'm going to make a choice, oh, I'm going to make a choice, oh, I'm going to come up with something, the job of writing is to pull them into a coherent whole. The audience tends to look for an irrational amount of coherence. It is not real. It is not what life is like, but it is what most stories are like. It is entirely possible to tell a story that is not coherent and make it be good. It would be hard to make that a commercially viable story, but I'm not going to say it wouldn't be a good story. Also, it is possible to keep more balls in the air that you're juggling than most people do. I like to do that personally. I'm like, well, the insurance thing and the military thing, those could work. But how many balls do I want to keep in the air? My personal comfort level is very high, but I am trying to teach sort of the basics. And the basics would be, don't overload yourself with subjects and themes and ideas. Stick to a few and then develop those, so that if Norman and Madeline are doing a love story, that was why it felt right to me to say the reason that Deakins quit serial killing 30, 40 years ago is because he fell in love. It felt like a nice echo. Very often you'll have a story which takes a different view of the same topic or is in opposition. So you have to say, this person doesn't believe in love and that's why they're killing, whatever it is. So that's my take on it. Deacon sounds like a numbers killer. That's possible. I didn't feel that about the numbers thing. I think that was just my trying to logic it out. Yes, that is a fun fact. Yeah. There's absolutely totally cool. Thank you for the suggestion. Yeah, that is actually a fun fact. Anti-vigilante laws. I will throw that into the big pile of facts that I could deal with, because vigilantism actually is fact. Hold on, I'm just writing this, Larry, into. Hold on. The series outline document, series outline, which is where I just throw everything I can't think of. Some states have anti-vigilante laws. That's a cool fact. Neat. All right, so there we go. I am going to sign off. Let me just quickly check my calendar because I may... I will not be here tomorrow. Thursday. I will be back Thursday. Today is Tuesday the 18th. For those of you who are planning to watch live tomorrow, Wednesday, I will not be live tomorrow. Got something's coming up that I cannot get around, so therefore that's what's going to happen. I will be back Thursday. Have yourselves a fabulous Wednesday. Go write something.